Let me start my musings of today. An interesting topic, especially interesting because I'm into amateur sports and I value as a side effect the fitness that comes across. And of course, been in software and testing for lots of years. So an interesting correlation it is to connect two completely different elements of fitness and software. So a quick definition, what is fitness? And I think, if you look at the dictionary, this is what it probably shows up. It shows up as a quality of being suitable to fulfill a particular role or a task. It is really an ability to carry out daily tasks without undue fatigue, right? So it's not about being fit to run a marathon or do a Ironman or play football alone. It's also really about being able to carry out the typical tasks without any undue fatigue. So there is a key important element of fitness in the daily context. Truly, fitness ultimately determines how well we can do a job. And therefore, they may be deemed as latent properties that allow us to rise up to a particular occasion. So what do we mean by a job? Well, it could be stuff that we do every day. Being able to walk to the nearby store, being able to do the minimal exercises, being able to walk around, work hard, and so on and so forth. It could also be certain sports that you might end up doing, maybe running, cycling, playing, wrestling, boxing, football, whatever. So it depends on the job. So if it's a fairly interesting physical job, then fitness becomes fundamentally important. If it's a hardcore sport job and it's a professional sport job, then fitness is terribly important, right? So I think the grades depend on what kind of a job that we are primarily doing. So now let's go back to the bit of software context and say, in software context, what does fitness mean? Is it about saying, it's strong enough so that I can showcase it to my users and customers and the world at large? Is it appealing enough to those people so that they are interested in trying out, using it? And both as a user and as a vendor, is it about being confident to use it in a different set of situations? It could be anything. And remember, this is not a pedagogic exercise. So what we're doing is just interesting thoughts and musings. So it's in some sense, therefore, a little, not exactly, I'm saying these are the only three things, right? So I guess you get the idea that it's strong enough, it's appealing enough, it is confident to use, and so on. That could be one way. So let's look at fitness and ask ourselves and just expand our realm of thinking and see what are the various types of fitness, what does it cost to be unfit, how do we assess, and so on and so forth, the next 24-25 minutes. So are there different types of fitness? Maybe it's physical, things that we easily understand because we seem to think of it from an exercise, food, nutrition. So we are really looking at it from the body systems to work efficiently so that we can do our daily act. So that's something that we value, which we understand easily, a variety of different ways we use to assess the physical fitness, right? The second is the notion of mental fitness. Are we strong enough mentally? And that hopefully helps us to think clearly, helps us to make decisions, certainly effectively and efficiently. So obviously mental fitness is not so easily visible, right? And the third, which is a little more invisible, so if you consider this to be intellect, this is kind of the mind, right? It's emotional fitness, the ability to handle difficult times. And therefore emotional fitness is to take care and weather the vagaries as we go through the various highs and various lows of life. And possibly there are many, but these are things that I can muse about. I think that one is easy to understand, physical. The second is something slightly hidden from an intellectual, mental standpoint. And the third is something more subtler than that, and that's really the emotional part. So that's as far as humans is concerned, right? Now let's relate it to the context of software. And all I want to bring about this point is that it's multidimensional too. The notion of fitness for software is multidimensional too. So how can we kind of relate this? Maybe something like this. Is it structurally fit? Physical is something that is internal, something to do with the structure, the elements that make up the bones, the muscles, and the various other things that go along. So very similar to that, we're talking about the structural elements that make up the piece of software, the design, the code, the framework, the technology, the way we have crafted it, the way we have assembled it, the way we have deployed it in some sense. It's all of them have a notion of structural fitment. So we're really asking, does it hold well? And second is, okay, it's structurally fit. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty fit. I've got a great heart rate. My skin seems to be good. My bone seems to be fine, but am I functionally fit? Very much in software too, right? I mean, it's great code inside, but does it do anything meaningful? Is it functional enough, fit enough? Is it able to do what I want it to do? And I'm trying to correlate to the notion of mental illness, mental wellness, so to speak, or mentally fit. And the emotional part, I'm trying to correlate to saying, look, am I resilient? Am I strong? And can I withstand the real world vagaries, right? So as a software, I guess I'm trying to look at it from, I'm fundamentally, structurally good enough and functionally good enough, fit enough, being able to do. And finally, I'm really being strong, resilient. So think about it from attributes, think about it from environments, think about it different market segments, think about it from different users and so on and so forth, right? And therefore, if we ask, okay, given these entire stuff, what would it take to build fitness? I'm just looking at parallels because it's easy to understand parallels, right? And so the easy part about human fitness is, I guess we understand that. We say, it's about good diet, good nutrition, healthy food, healthy air. And if I'm doing anything, whatever be the kind of exercise, simplistic, it could be just push-ups. It should be squats. It could be anything. It could be skipping. What is important is repeats. It's about exercising or doing some certain repetitive motion which allows us to contract and distend our muscles, and therefore that repeats ultimately strengthen us internally. And of course, consistency in terms of being disciplined, doing it not once in a blue moon, but hopefully as regularly as possible, maybe every day, maybe every alternate day, and so on and so forth. That's one set. The second set is about not just doing the same exercise or same things or eating the same kind of food. Maybe there is some variations required. So I guess we look at different kinds of exercises, different times of the day, different repeat structures, different kinds of food. And so we do some variations. And why do we do this? We have some objective in mind, right? It's doing a job, as we talked about. What's the objective? Is it just to be good every day? Or is it to be able to run a 10-miler? Is it about, to be able to commute to office every day by a cycle? What is the objective? So the objective must be clear. And finally, of course, the most important endorphin, the stuff that helps, not endorphin, the stuff that helps us to really, the magic pill is about sleep, the rest, and the recover, right? So that's what we mean by human fitness. And we say, hey, it's about diets, repeats, build discipline, doing variations, keeping the objective in mind, and of course, doing nothing, rest. And what does it mean when we relate it to software? It could be in terms of saying, hey, diets is like maybe good practices, logical ones, hopefully, driven by some meaningful, well-formed principles and techniques. Certainly, some meaningful process that aids to it. So good practices and processes are like good diet, right? Nutrition. The fact that you're kind of doing it and being consistent is about like continuous amount of test and being consistent. So that's a bit of like an exercise. And I say testing in a very large sense. It could be reviews, it could be tests, it could be anything that is, you're constantly looking at it to seek clarity, validate, and you're doing it continuously. It's not like you say, let me run a thorough test and then go to sleep for next few days or next few weeks. So we want to be a certain degree consistent, constantly and continuously. We talked about variations, right? So variations are equally important. We understand that very clearly because it's about perturbations. And we look at variations from data, environment, scenarios, the way we actually test, discipline, ad hoc, creative, and so on. And the objective, what do you mean by objective here? Who is going to use it for what kind of criteria are we supposed to meet? When do they use it and how do they use it, and so on and so forth. So you're really looking at it from an outward perspective. And what do you mean by rest and recover? I mean, yes, as we validate, as we assess, as we build in, there are times when we have to freeze the code. We can't just keep on constantly doing something. So there is a certain point in that we freeze and then say, okay, this is now well captured. Let's get on to the next one later. And hopefully, if we don't freeze that easily, if we don't freeze that frequently, then the process and the practice, the data, the nutrition has to be brilliant. It's like continuously exercising, continuously doing an activity, serious endurance. That's a little different ballgame. And I understand that because I do seriously long distance cycling. So I appreciate what it means, not to sleep for like a few days. Not easy, but then are you built is a different stuff. So that's kind of the freeze code idea, right? So how do I see fitness from very many dimensions? Here is some of them. One way I look at it is from here. Let me remember we talked about physical fitness. Yeah, it's like saying, hey, I see fitness as something strong internally, good construction. I see something as robust externally. I'm able to do some decent work, good work. I'm able to see this as, okay, I am strong and I am robust and I am resilient in various situations. I adapt, I deliver high performance in all situations. And finally, I really appreciate the value of the fitness, see the benefits of the fitness, see that I'm becoming less sick, I'm feeling more good. And what does it mean in the context of software? You actually see some value. So we looked at the notion of the act of evaluating something as a fitness, assessing fitness, building in fitness and characteristic fitness, and ultimately what is the real value of what we do. And that's where I think the benefits play off. Maybe there is less issues, more satisfied customers, improved market share, blah, blah, stuff like that. How do I see fitness from a slightly different point of view, right? I think a good friend of mine yesterday gave me a brilliant sticker and I couldn't resist scanning that sticker and putting it up here. And that's the credit is really from that site. So I went to the site and picked up the digital version of that. So I'm not violating copyrights because I have, if you're interested in the sticker, click on that link and you should probably get it. Another way of looking at the fitness is from a system. I'm fine. So I have a system. I've done whatever that I need to do. In this case, could be a body, could be a software. In this particular case, I'm fine. Maybe I have a system and I've added some stuff. I've enhanced my stuff. So it's like saying, I'm doing something, but now I want to become a swimmer. I also want to do another job. So I extend. So what do I want to do? I want to be sure that I've not lost the existing fitness that I have made, in the context of, let's say, running and cycling in my pursuit to triathlon. And therefore, I just want to be sure that I've not lost an existing fitness. I'm bigger, I'm still fit. And sometimes I modify. I now moved to, let's say, from a marathon running to high-speed sprints. So maybe I've done some modification in the way I do or in the context of software, adjust something within the software, fix a bug, improve the performance, do some modifications, so to speak. And what do I want to do? I want to ensure that I've not lost existing fitness. I'm still enhanced and I'm still fit. And so there's another view of fitness from a notion of time as things change, right? And that's just another view. The other one more was from a structure, function, resilience, and value. Slightly differently. So fitness needs to what? To be able to, in some sense, honor prior commitments. That means, if I deliver a piece of code, I just have to ensure that the customer is able to use it with the previous set of data, environment, and so on. So I can't just say, oh, I'm brilliantly fit, but sorry, you can't do those anymore. You can't do those kinds of activities anymore. Or you'll do it very poorly. So it's like saying, yeah, I'm training for something else and I'm losing something else badly. And that what I lose is not acceptable. Certainly, it needs to be able to meet the present needs. So you're building something, you're becoming fit for a particular reason. I hope to God you're able to accomplish that, right? So if you are learning swimming and if you're wanting to do triathlon, there's no fun if it's not possible to do that. And of course, this is to be able to look at future demands. So because of this voracious, crazy activity that you're trying to do, it doesn't mean that, well, you are going to you have to have a severe muscle loss. that means future is going to be bad. So it's a kind of a notion of being able to honor the past, fulfill the present, and fulfill the future demands, and yet be able to meet the present. So if you understand environment sustainability, I guess you know what I'm talking about, right? The notion of current and the notion of future and so on. So I guess when we are doing anything from an aspect of fitness and we're trying to assess the software we are testing, reviews or whatever, we need to keep this from a time perspective, structure perspective, outcome perspective, and so on. So that's a different POV, so to speak. So why is it we are unfit? Well, maybe it's because of some of these. I think you understand that very well, right? I just slacked up on my nutrition. I ran into an injury. I became sedentary. Well, I violated sleep. So we know that. So what does it mean in the context of software? That's just to correlate maybe poor choices of technology, sloppy environments, poor choices of what we did in terms of how we code and practices that we use. Injury is just terrible modification. So we just did something really badly and it kind of injured the entire piece of software. Sedentariness is looking just for compliance, not really looking beyond, maybe not really testing, you're not really looking for issues, you're not probing, you don't have much of variations, and lack of sleep is really unstable. Stuff that is unstable, you're trying to enhance, you're trying to add, and you're going to make it really bad, isn't it? And that's probably one way to correlate the notion of why unfit stuff happens, be it to the human on one side or the system on the other side. So fitness for what? And fitness as in terms of for what? And that's really what it is. So one can look at it as parts, from a perspective of parts. My leg is fit, like my modules are fit, my piece of code is fit, my earliest structural pieces are good. Or I can look at it and say, look, it's not just my leg alone, it's a combination of parts, my upper abdomen, my head, my neck, my hand, and therefore it's like the sum of parts. That's in a way like the features are fit. But what do you really want to do? You want to dance. And maybe that's really the wholesome piece. They're able to fit to dance, and that's the wholesomeness of the fit. So fitness can be parts, fitness can be the whole, fitness can be something in between. And this is just another way of looking at from the context of fitness as connected to the humans and as connected to software, if you will, right? So so let me just start another poll for you and let's see how it works. Let's start a quick poll and say, what do you think fitness of software is a function of? Is it smart practices? Is it practices of approach and so on and so forth? Is it a judicious mix of smart practice and process? Is it a continuous probing mindset? What do you think? I think it's a multi-choice question, so you could have many. Okay, that was quick, I guess. That's kind of all, isn't it? Okay, let's continue on. So when we talk about fitness, we talk about entities as they get composed and perturbed. We worry about fitness in terms of breaking existing fitness, and I think you understand why we probably regress a whole lot. We worry about different situations, users, usage, environments, and we worry about if somebody else has raised their fitness bar higher, then I will lose. And that simply means that if the marketplace has got superior software than ours, then I guess it doesn't matter what you test because we probably lose the market share anyway. Right? So just putting in a slightly context from a context of worry and see what it means. So what is it? Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to get at. So do we have really meaningful ways by how we can assess? Yeah, one can look at it from I do some activities, I test, I examine statically. Those are activity oriented, right? The second, the third, the remaining ones are really about observing, reasoning, deducing, analyzing, discussing. And those are ways and means to assess fitness, not necessarily human alone, it's also software. And the last one is I do have to rely on a gut feel. So I guess that's some aspects of how we look at how can we assess the notion of fitness, right?